Hi, welcome back to this tier list series, and today we are on the Series 4 specials from 2009 to 2010. Now, the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that there is a little change with the tier list, and that is because for one tier list only, I have changed fantastic into spectacular. And anyone who knows me will know why. To be fair, the tier list in general, it was a toss-up between fantastic and spectacular to begin with. And I went with fantastic because it was the 9th Doctor and I had 9, 10 and 11 on there. And I already had Missy on there, plus the Daleks and Cybermen and the TARDIS. So I thought, do I need another Master? The answer was always yes, but I didn't. I went with the 9th Doctor. So for this particular tier list, because this moment happens in one of these episodes, I have changed it up just for this one time. So let's begin with Planet of the Dead. So this episode got a 2, and I don't really enjoy it much. For one thing, I fucking hate Lady Christina. Absolutely despise the bitch. She's an aristocrat who steals for fun, and that's not something that I like. If someone steals because they need it, like the people who steal baby formula and stuff like that, I didn't see anything. But Lady Christina has more money than most of England put together, and she doesn't need any more. She's fine. She steals for the fun of it, and I don't like that. That's not a good companion for the Doctor. Having a cat burglar who does it for the fun in the style of Catwoman, where she doesn't necessarily need to do it and it's for fun, but she's not an aristocrat, that would be semi-acceptable to me. But it's the aristocrat thing. And the fact that she says later on that the aristocracy survives for a reason, that they're ready for anything. I'm sorry, were the aristocracy ready for the French Revolution? Other than that, the episode itself is fine. It would have been a 3, but Lady Christina pisses me off too much, so it's a 2. But the episode itself is fine. I don't have a problem with it not being Eastery. It came out as an Easter special, and the Doctor mentions Easter at the beginning by saying Happy Easter and offering her a bit of Easter egg. I don't need more. I'm not one of those people who thinks that a special has to be about that particular date. I don't think that Halloween special has to be on Halloween or a Christmas special on Christmas. Sure, the Christmas specials are nice on Christmas, but does something have to happen in the Whoniverse every year on Christmas Day? Come on, let people have one day off. Although the Doctor bringing the Easter egg does make me wish that I could time travel, because I would time travel back to when Cadbury's was good and try original Cadbury's again, especially the Cadbury's Dream. Fucking loved Cadbury's Dream. I do also like the threat level of this episode because it's not a universal threat or a world-ending threat. I mean, the threat ended one world, but the threat is mostly to the lives of the Doctor and the people in the bus in this episode. It's not necessarily a threat to Earth as such yet. It could be, but it's not yet, and I do quite like the fact that it's just a base level threat, really. So overall, I'm going to put Planet of the Dead into Wibbly Wobbly. I do think it's a well-made episode. I just hate Christina, and she ruins it for me. I know the actress from EastEnders before. I don't have any issue with her, just the character. I hate the character. I hate her. Also, why did the Doctor let her go at the end? It doesn't make any sense. She's a thief. She deserves to be caught by the police on this occasion. Why did he let her go? He made Lucy Saxon go to prison when that girl needed fucking tons of trauma therapy, and he made her go to prison. We'll see how that worked out for him later on in the season. But why did he let Christina go? He should have let her go to prison. She's a thief. A regular thief, apparently. The police knew who she was. They knew that she was doing it. They just needed to catch her in the act. Why let her go? So annoying. The MVP for the episode is Dr. Malcolm Taylor. Bless him, I love Malcolm. Absolutely love him. Lee Evans is brilliant. Another comic genius in Doctor Who, I love to see it. But him with the Doctor as Malcolm, oh, bless his little heart. He's adorable, absolutely adorable. And I love him. Absolutely fucking love Malcolm. Next up is The Waters of Mars. So this episode got a 5, which is quite a jump from the last one. And honestly, this is one of those episodes that I didn't like on first watch. I did like the scare factor. When I first watched it, I was terrified of the flood and all that. They are terrifying. The effects on them look amazing. Everything that they did to make that effect work was brilliant. But I wasn't so keen on the episode as a whole when I was younger. As an adult, I can see it for the beautiful, tragic episode that it is. It is honestly one of the saddest episodes in Doctor Who. It gets sadder every time I watch it, and the last time I watched it, I was almost in tears. The crew are so wonderful together. Each character is perfect, and they're all honest. That's my big thing with this crew, is that they're all completely honest. When water drops on them, just a single drop, they don't lie. In a lot of these things, someone will lie and hide it and all that because they'll be like, no, I'll fight it, I'll be fine. And they just want to survive. That survival instinct kicks in and they get selfish. But this crew are entirely selfless. They're not going to allow a single drop of water to get back to Earth, even if it means they have to stay behind. I love that crew. Although I do have to say about the crew, Adelaide Brooke, Captain Adelaide Brooke, is a millennial. It's actually crazy to me to watch What Was of Mars, knowing that this was out in 2009 when I was in year 9, and she's a millennial. Adelaide Brooke could be my age. That's insane to me. I do have issues with Adelaide and the Dalek and all of that, because Daleks don't give a shit about fixed points, and they also don't give a shit about anything other than their Dalek master plan. If the Daleks knew that they were going to be taking over the world and whatnot and destroying the universe, why would they care about leaving Adelaide Brooke alive? She would have to die along with the rest of the universe. The What Was of Mars wouldn't happen at all. The Dalek would have had to have known that the Daleks weren't going to succeed. So it's stupid. I don't like it. Also, with the fixed point, I feel like the Doctor could have saved them and kept the fixed point intact. Because if you think about it, the fixed point wasn't necessarily all of them dying. The fixed point was the base blowing up and the flood not getting back to Earth. So the Doctor could have taken them all on his TARDIS, as he does for a couple of them at the end, and blown the base up regardless. That's all they had to do. Then they tell the story about why the base blew up, and then they don't go back to Mars. But Adelaide's granddaughter would still go out and seek the stars because she'd be inspired by Adelaide's own story, like the Doctor says. The Doctor does go all time victorious in this episode. This is where that whole thing comes from. But it's weird to me because, sure, I get what Adelaide says about no one should have that power. Makes sense. But the Doctor's had that power the whole time. Everyone who travels in the TARDIS has that power. Rose did it. Everyone has that power if they travel through time. Just because they have the power, it doesn't mean they should use it, but they have it. The fact is that the Doctor could have kept the fixed point intact whilst saving as many of them as he could, which, as I say, he does at the end, but it wouldn't have affected anyone's story, so I don't really see why they couldn't have just done that. With the Tunnel Victorious, though, I would love to know whether, if the Master saw the Doctor in that state, whether he'd absolutely love it or whether he'd be very, very scared. My last point on this episode, I've got loads of notes, but my last thing I'm going to say is Gadget, the robot, was covered in that Mars water. And he was on the TARDIS. And then he was on Earth. Is that not bad? Is that not going to transmit the water? The water's patient, right? So why was it not resting on Gadget? And then, I don't understand that. Maybe it needs a living host, but then it's water in the first place. So as long as it just stays on Gadget in droplet form, it will be fine, right? I just don't understand why Gadget was able to get out of there and everything was safe. Anyway, this episode was wonderful, truly terrifying. I love all the transformations being in the background of shots so that you're not even focused on it and all you can see is the person shaking, but you know that shit's going down. It was really scary, really good, and as much as I don't like all the fixed point stuff because I just don't think it makes much sense, I do like the episode. However, I can't put it into the tip-top category because of those little things I mentioned, because I can't really look past it. So this one is going into spectacular. And yes, I do have to say it that way every time. The MVP is Steffi Ehrlich. Seriously, her death was the saddest one for me. I can't handle her death scene. That's the one that makes me want to cry. Next up is Dreamland. So like with the Infinite Quest in Series 3, this is an animated special, but it is a full episode length, so I'm concluding it in these series of specials as an episode. Plus it's got David Tennant voicing the Doctor, so why not? The animation for this one is not great. It kind of feels like old PlayStation cutscenes rather than a good animated episode of TV. And I kind of feel like they should have just kept the 2D animation. However, having said that, I do think that this style of animation works really well for the story that they were telling, even if it doesn't hold up very well and probably wasn't good for the time either. This story got a 3. I think it was okay. But yeah, I just think that this is an alright story. It's a decent episode of Doctor Who. I think it would have been good in live action as well, but it's probably better in animated form. This episode, though, does prove my point, and a lot of people's points. Having a series without a companion would be absolutely fine. The Doctor doesn't really need a companion. This episode and The Deadly Assassin from Classic Who just shows that the Doctor doesn't need a companion all the time. I'm not saying get rid of companions, but I am saying maybe it's okay to have a season without them, or just a few episodes without them, you know, just here and there. I think that they were actually going to do a companionless season at one point. I feel like it was series 9. I feel like that's what it was supposed to be. They didn't go with it in the end, and okay, but I think it could have worked. So yeah, overall I think it was okay, and I'm going to put Dreamland into upgrade in progress. I think the story was absolutely fine, and I think the animation is the only thing really that lets it down. Otherwise, it's a decent episode of Doctor Who, but it would still be a 3 or a 4 at best if it was a better animation style. And the MVP for the episode is Jimmy Stalking Wolf. Next up is The End of Time Part 1. So this episode got a 5, and I think we all knew that was going to happen. I love this episode. This episode is probably my most watched episode of Doctor Who ever, just purely because it came out on Christmas Day, and then the second half came out on New Year's Day. So every day from Christmas Day to New Year's Day, I would re-watch the episode until New Year's Day. And actually on New Year's Day, just before the next episode aired, I watched it again. I fucking loved it. I loved it. And that cliffhanger, love it. Again, I love when the villain wins. I love it. I really do. Although, can we even say that the Master was the villain of this story, really? I feel like he was the victim here and Rassilon's the villain. Just saying. So at the beginning we get the prophecy from the Ood, and I like the way that was done, except for the weird clip show. However, having said that, without the clip show, I would not have remembered who Lucy was. I remember watching it and going, who the fuck is that? And even to this day, sometimes I watch it and go, who is that? I think it's the bangs. It's the bangs. She had a haircut in prison, and because of that, I can't recognise the girl. And why is she still called the Master's wife? She never married him for real. She was his fake wife for political reasons or whatever, I don't know. I really don't know why he bothered getting a wife, but it was for that, I guess. And she never actually married the Master. She married Harold Saxon, so it doesn't count. She's Lucy something or other, not Lucy Saxon. Just stop calling her that. And why is she in prison anyway? I've said it before and I'll say it again. That girl needs therapy. Prison's not going to help her, and she's not exactly a danger to anyone else, so why is she locked up? Put her in therapy. Put her in a rehab centre or something. She may very well have been hypnotised by the Master, or she may have been doing it of her own volition because, I don't know, power lust and he promised her things, I don't know. But the point is, she needs therapy. She was abused for at least a year, and that girl needs therapy, not prison, okay? And also, as much as I hate her in general because she killed my favourite character, I do always stand by women's wrongs when it is killing an abuser. I don't think women should get prison time for killing abusers. When it's someone who's abused them or someone who's abused their children, nah, I don't care. No prison, just help. I'm pretty sure there was a woman in Brazil recently who killed someone who hurt her child in sort of defence of them, not just randomly. And then she got off completely. The jury were like, no, we're not going to commit. It's how it should be. People who abuse people, and children especially, do not deserve to breathe the same air as us. For legal reasons, that is a joke. Another thing about all of this Master Resurrection stuff, what's with the books of Saxon? I mean, sure, the Master would create a cult, I can see that. He doesn't have very good cult members. He needs to invest in better cult members, gotta be honest. I mean, it took one of them so very long to kill off one warden of a prison. Why did it take you 2 years to kill off one warden? Actually, I suppose it would be 1 year by this point, because we're back up to speed now. This is 2009 Christmas, so. But still, it took her a year to kill off one warden. He needs better cult members. But the books of Saxon, they were never released as merch or anything, as far as I'm aware, and I think that Doctor Who missed out on that one. Release the books of Saxon as merch, or release them as a book. We've got the Time Lord books, like How to Be a Time Lord and the history of Gallifrey and all that. They're sort of fact fiction books, so release the books of Saxon. I want the books of Saxon. But I do have many questions about this resurrection ritual, because the Master was resurrected by the Time Lords before, and presumably there were no humans on Gallifrey at the time to give their life force for the Master, and I doubt any of the Time Lords would have been giving their lives to resurrect the Master. So why did they need human sacrifices in this one? And do the sacrifices only work when their arms are out like that? Because everyone who was being sacrificed was like that, and everyone who wasn't being sacrificed was just standing normally. And what was in the potions? And why was Lucy wearing lipstick in prison? Just so many questions. One thing I absolutely hate about this episode is the woman in white subplot. I don't feel it was necessary at all. It didn't add anything to the plot. It was just a way to make Wilf feel scared and worried and stuff, and that was it. But Wilf would have already been scared and worried and stuff. He didn't need the woman in white. And also, I don't care what anyone says, it's Susan. I don't care. I don't care what anyone says, what Russell says, what anyone else says. The woman in white was Susan, because that is the only way that makes sense to me. Because if she was the one who's standing up there with Rassilon at the end of Time Part 2, and she was doing that and then looked at the Doctor and he saw her, his granddaughter, that would link into Classic Who, and it would just make so much more sense as to why he wouldn't go through with it. And obviously Susan was in the Time War. We know that. She was an adult. And it would make more sense for her to have regenerated at least once by that point. It was Susan. Okay, now time to talk about my favourite character. So I think it's really sad that the Doctor just never believed the Master about the noise in his head. I don't know how you wouldn't believe that someone could hear that, but the Doctor just said, no, it's just your psychosis, there's no noise. But that would still be a noise in his head. That's like telling someone with tinnitus that they can't hear ringing all the time. Yes, they can. Just because you can't hear it doesn't mean they can't. But it's such a tragic scene when he's just begging him to hear it. He's absolutely just begging the Doctor to listen and to hear it. And then when the Doctor does hear it and he's like, it's real. Like, what is that? And the Master is just so vindicated. It's just, he was just begging his bestie for help and he finally got him to understand that it is real. And then he was just so happy, so very pleased to know that he's not actually that insane. It is real. He got the vindication he needed and deserved. Later on with the Master, Naismith gloats that the Master should watch the presidential address because it's proof that humans can solve their own problems. And that comes immediately after the Master has just finished solving Naismith's problem, because Naismith forced an alien to solve his own problem rather than solving it himself. So, sounds very hypocritical of him. And don't get me started on Naismith's fucking daughter, okay? For one thing, the sexual tension between the father and the daughter, creepy as fuck. That is a weird incesty style relationship that I'm not a fan of. Very fucking creepy. But for another thing, she does the name thing again. Remember I said in 2 previous tier lists that Russell T Davies has this weird fascination with names and mentioning names at really random points? This is another one. So the Master is working away and Abigail randomly says, the only reason I know her name is because of this moment. Abigail randomly says, Abigail, it means bringer of joy. Bitch, who asked you? It's so weird and it's so stupid, and I can guarantee the Master did not ask, nor did he want to know, nor does he care. And neither do I. I don't care. If you're going to mention the character's name, just have another character say, Abigail, come look at this, or whatever. Why are you doing it this way? It's weird. It's bizarre. I don't like it. The ending, obviously, I'm a huge fan of. The Master is everybody and everybody's the Master. Except we got to keep Wilf and Donna, so that's good. And the Doctor, I suppose. But yeah, the Master has taken over the world by implanting himself as everybody in the world, so fun times. We get loads more Master. Although I do really pity John Sim at the time having to do all these different things in all these different outfits just over and over and over again, because that would have been excessive. I cannot imagine how long that took to film. And also the End of Time Part 2, about half of it at least, is him in all those different outfits. So it was just constant. And obviously the Time Lord's returning at the end as well. The big reveal that the narrator the whole time was Rassilon. Not that we know that yet. And the Time Lords are returning. Massive epic moment in this episode and at the end of this era of Who. So I do love it overall. And I'm going to tier this now. And obviously, even with all of the horrible things about it, you know where I'm going to put it because this is my tier list and this is also my nostalgia pick. So it's going into NewWho. I don't care what anyone says, I fucking love this episode. Although I do wish that we had had the original plan for it. As much as I love having a world full of Masters, I really wish that we had seen the original plan for this. Because originally they were going to have the Master and the Doctor swap bodies. And therefore John Sim would be playing the Doctor and David Tennant would be playing the Master. And I would just love to see how that would work out. Because I've seen the Doctor playing Kilgrave in Jessica Jones. Did I say the Doctor? I've seen David Tennant playing Kilgrave in Jessica Jones, so I know that he can play that horrible, nasty role. But as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen John Sim playing a doctory type role. He's played a lot of police officers and stuff like that are on the side of good, but I haven't seen him play the Doctor type role before. So I just love to watch them play each other. Like how David and Catherine in series 4 for the Dr. Donna, they were sort of mimicking each other at times. And it would be like that, but obviously with John Sim and David Tennant instead. And I just really would have fucking loved to have seen that. Obviously, the idea was used later on in The Power of the Doctor, sort of. I don't think that one worked as well and didn't make any sense to me, but we'll get to that when we get to that episode. I just really wanted to see how David Tennant and John Sim would have played each other. I know they could both do it wonderfully, I just wanted to see it. And the MVP of this episode is Sarah and the other person in the burger van. They're charity workers, I work for a charity, so it's a shame that they're both now skeletons. Which is a waste, to be honest. I mean, apparently the marrow in your bones is really good for health and stuff. The master just left the bones there. I mean, clearly he wasn't that hungry. Now we're on to the End of Time Part 2. So I think you can guess this one also got a 5. It wasn't going to get anything else. It's mostly just the master talking to the master, who's also talking to the master right beside the master. Obviously, I was going to fucking love this one. Oh, I love this episode. I liked seeing scenes from the Time War, so we actually see the final days of the Time War. Obviously, we'll see more of that in the future, but I liked seeing that here. And I love when the master gives an explanation for their childhood on Gallifrey and stirring into the untempered schism and all of that. I love all of that sort of scene because it just adds to the Time Lord lore. The Lord lore. The scene with Wilf and the Doctor tied up and the Master's prancing around in the middle, I love that scene because when the Master's talking to the other Masters and he just reacts to Wilf and like gives him a little wink and he goes to the Doctor and he's all proud of himself and pleased. I love it. It's so fun. I love when villains win and can just have fun with it, and he's really having fun. And then obviously the wink comes back when Donna mind destroys a load of Master clones and the Doctor just sort of winks to the Master while he's still gagged. And then he calls Donna his bestie, and from the Master's face you can tell that he knows that's just the Doctor baiting him and he's not going to take that bait. I also love the Master's reaction to the gun when he finds that in Wilf's jacket. He's like, good man. I just love how he's just like, oh, you had a gun. That's fun. One thing about this though is that I don't understand why the Master clones obey the Master template, because they're all the Master and the Master doesn't like obeying people. He likes people to obey him. And sure, the Master clones would know that if the Master template dies, they would also revert back to being the humans they were. So they wouldn't exactly want to kill him. But why are they obeying him? They could just tie him up somewhere and then go about their lives. But then they'd probably all kill each other until there's one Master left and then it's just them and the Master template, and I mean, it will go on. I think we know that the Master doesn't do well with other people. Especially himself, actually. If you've listened to the Master for audio drama, which is the first Big Finish drama I bought, you'll know that the Master does not do well, even with himself. So Rassilon then. Rassilon is just completely evil. The Master is complex and villainous, and sure, he does a lot of evil shit, but Rassilon is just batshit evil. It's not just that Rassilon was literally the one to turn the Master insane and put that signal in his head for his entire life. It's also that the Master was 8. Okay, little baby Crochet was 8. That's child abuse. Rassilon is just pure evil. I don't care about what the Master does. Rassilon's evil, okay? Rassilon is something else. Sure, the Master's probably done worse, but I'm allowed to make concessions for my favourite fictional characters, okay? They're fictional. No one was hurt in the making of this. But also, Rassilon's plan is completely batshit crazy as well. His plan is basically to make them all consciousness alone, as he says in the episode. And that's literally what Omega is. Omega, who the Time Lords know about, they know that he's the way he is. He's basically just consciousness alone, and he's stayed there by his own willpower. But he's not physical. He has no physical form. Rassilon wants to put all the Time Lords through that hell. Omega was trying to get out of that at least twice. And Rassilon's like, nah, let's all do this. Why? That's insane. And even the Master's like, what the fuck? So yeah, that's bonkers. Although I do love that the Master, even though he does think that's a completely fucking insane plan, he's like, I'm just gonna go with it because I want to win, so. And then, my God, the heartbreaking scene happens. The heartbreaking scene when they say that he's a disease and all that, and you see the Master really upset. And then when the Doctor has the gun and he's put in between the Rassilon and the Master, and then he's gonna shoot Rassilon, he turns to the Master and he's going to shoot him, and the Master's goading him to do it because he doesn't believe that his bestie would ever actually shoot him, and so he's goading him on. And then the Doctor's finger tightens just a little tiny bit on that trigger, and the Master realises, oh my God, he's actually going to kill him. And that tiny little head shake, the tiny little head shake, the tears in his eyes, the tiny little head shake, I can never get over that. Absolute masterclass of acting, because my God, it's so small but it's so brilliant. I'm really glad that they cut the line from the script. Yes, I read the script again. I looked at it because I wanted to know if the head shake was direction or if it was actually in the script. So I had a look, and there was actually a line there where the Master said don't. And obviously he didn't say don't, he just did the tiny little head shake. And I think that's so much more powerful. So much more powerful. And then the Doctor doesn't shoot him and I'm really happy. And then they work together, and we know that I love when the Doctor and Master work together. The Doctor says, get out of the way. The Master does that cute little smile where he's like, oh, I see, yeah. And then he tells the Doctor, get out of the way, and starts zapping Rassilon. And yes, it's mostly for vengeance, but also he's protecting his bestie, because those two are besties for the resties, and they're not going to let anyone else hurt each other. They're going to be the ones to kill each other if anyone does it, but they don't actually want to kill each other. They'd never do it. It's never going to happen for real. So after all of that, when the Doctor is overjoyed that he's survived and he's alive and he's not going to die, and then we hear that knocking, the music behind it is just so effective. The fact that it just sort of drains off and you hear the knocking again. And then as David Tennant sits up and you just see Wilf blurred in the background, and then it's just really brilliant. The direction was really brilliant and everything about that was just fabulous. The thing is, I know that people complain about the Doctor's crash out. I get that. And I get why. However, I think it's justified. I don't think he needed to be cruel to Wilf about it, but I think it's completely justified because he's only been in that body for a couple of years. He's already regenerated once within that body and kept it, but now he's going to have to regenerate and become someone new entirely. And I think he's actually the shortest lived Doctor. And also the 10th Doctor is probably the vainest of all the incarnations. So it does make sense to me that he would have a little crash out at the fact that he has to change again. I know that most of the fandom don't like the little farewell tour at the end, but personally I love it. I think it's really good, and especially the fact that we know from other media that the Doctor went through all of his past companions, not just the New Who era ones. And while I don't think it makes complete sense for him to do that because it's not his last life, technically the Matt Smith one, the 11th Doctor, would be his last life in this regeneration cycle because that's technically the 13th Doctor. So really that should be the companion tour one. But I do like how this was done, and I like the fact that he ended it with Rose. Though I will say that he was really fucking lucky that Rose and Jackie were just out walking at midnight on New Year's Eve in 2005. Also, with the companion tour, I will say that the Verity Newman scene should have been cut. Every fucking time I watched that, I had no idea who that bitch was. And also, why would the Doctor go and visit her granddaughter? Go and visit her, or don't bother going. Like, why visit the granddaughter? What the fuck's that about? So pointless. And finally with that, Martha. I think you know where I'm going with this. She deserved better. For one thing, why did she go freelance? She was working with UNIT. If she wanted to change, she could have gone to Torchwood. Why would she leave UNIT anyway? Why go freelance? What was the purpose of that? And why did she end up with Mickey? I don't think they even said one word to each other before this particular episode. So why did they end up together? I mean, there is a reason that some people have said, and to be honest, I can see it, but I also think it was that they just couldn't fit in as many scenes as they wanted to, and they just had to pair some people up. But I feel like they could have just had Mickey working at UNIT and them just being colleagues or partners in the field or something. They didn't have to be married. What happened to Tom Milligan, huh? What happened to Martha's Dr. Tom? And obviously in that as well, he sees Donna again at the wedding, except she doesn't see him. And Bernard Cribbins is such a fine actor. He always gets me going with the feels. The way he says goodbye to the Doctor with the little... Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So emotive and wonderful. And then you've got, obviously, at the very end, Valet de Shem happening. Oh, it's a wonderful song, isn't it? It's a lovely, beautiful song. And then with the visuals as well, it's brilliant. And I'm not one of those people who thinks that the whole I don't want to go thing is too much. Again, I think it's valid. So I love it. The only thing I will say about the end scene though is that it's weird that the TARDIS got destroyed in this particular regeneration when the 9th Doctor and the War Master both regenerated into their next selves in the TARDIS and nothing broke at all. So why does this break it here? And then it breaks again when the 12th Doctor turns into the 13th Doctor. So why does this happen sometimes but not all the time? Speaking of the 11th Doctor though, that final scene with him, I think really went well to show just what this new era of Doctor Who was going to be and who this new Doctor was going to be. He only had about 30 seconds on screen, but you could see exactly what type of Doctor he was going to be in that moment, and I enjoyed that. So that is the vast majority of my notes sorted, and I'm going to tier this now. Now I bet you can guess where it's going to go. Obviously it's an ooey-oo. Again, it's my nostalgia pick. And also it's my tier list, I can put it where I want, damn it. Now, if you recall, my rule on MVPs is that they can't be the Doctor, the companion, or the villain. Okay? So, in End of Time Part 1, we'll say that the Doctor was the Doctor, Wilf was the companion, and then the Master was the villain. Right? And in the End of Time Part 2, the Doctor was the Doctor, Wilf was still the companion, and Rassilon, really, was the villain. Which means that I am once again able to say that the MVP of this episode is the Master. Any excuse. Any fucking excuse to put him as MVP, I'm doing it. But he really did make this episode. And to be fair, the actor for the Master in this episode, John Sim, he deserves MVP just for however long it took him to film all those little scenes in all those different costumes. So I can't give actual actors MVP, so it's going to the Master, because he makes this so worthwhile. And the little head shake. And that is it. That is all the specials of 2009 to 2010 tier listed. Obviously, it's a bit of a shorter season. Not that you'd know that from the timestamp of this video. It's fine. I don't know how everyone else's tier lists would look with this particular series, so please let me know. It looks like it only got better. It just kept increasing in wonder. The season stats. The most common score was a 5, and the season average is a 3.94. Surprisingly enough, I have 5 quotes for this season. I don't even know how, but I do. As always, I'll put up a poll and you can decide which one should be the official quote of this season. The first one comes from The Waters of Mars, and it is the Doctor when he's in his ragey form, and he's talking to Adelaide. He says, "Yes, because there are laws. There are laws of time. Once upon a time, there were people in charge of those laws, but they died. They all died. Do you know who that leaves? Me! It's taken me all these years to realise the laws of time are mine and they will obey me. We're not just fighting the flood, we're fighting time itself. And I'm gonna win." I can't do it as well as David Tennant, obviously, but you get the gist. Feel free to mute me and put the actual episode on and listen to the quote. It's great. I like that one. The next quote comes from End of Time Part 1, and it's between the woman in white, who I do still think is completely unnecessary, and Wilf. And she says, "You're an old soldier, sir, only you were too late. The war was won and passed you by." And Wilf says, "I did my duty." And she says, "You never killed a man." And Wilf replies, "No, I did not, no. But don't say that like it's shameful." I think you know my sentiments on war at this point, so I don't think I need to explain that one. The next quote comes from the End of Time Part 2, and it's a conversation between the Doctor while he's strapped in the BDSM chair and the Master. The Doctor says, "You could be wonderful. You're a genius. You're stone cold brilliant, you are. I swear you really are. But you could be so much more. You could be beautiful. With a mind like that, we could travel the stars. It would be my honour. Because you don't need to own the universe, just see it. To have the privilege of seeing the whole of time and space. That's ownership enough." And the Master says, "Would it stop then? The noise in my head? I don't know what I'd be without that noise." And the Doctor says, "I wonder what I'd be without you." I just love that one because it shows their friendship. Okay, it does. It shows that they're besties for the resties. When you watch them performing that bit of the scene, it's really sweet. It really does just feel like they're almost reminiscing of old times in their heads or something. It looks like the Master's actually about to accept. It looks like he's actually considering it. Obviously, he probably isn't because he's already gone through with the big plan and he wants more. But yeah, it's their friendship. I love their little enemies to friends to enemies again friendship. And the final quote of the season is probably the one I would have picked if I had to dwindle it down to one, but I don't want to. So this one comes from the End of Time Part 2 again, and it is Ood Sigma. And he says, "We will sing to you, Doctor. The universe will sing you to your sleep. This song is ending, but the story never ends." And I just like that because it kind of sums up Doctor Who. One Doctor's life may end, but the next Doctor's there. Doctor Who's been going for 63 years this year, so I kind of feel like that's a decent quote to sum up Doctor Who. Just never ends. Even when the show was cancelled, we had all those books, all those audio dramas, everything else in the wilderness years, so it never ends. And that is everything. So let me know which one you think should be the official quote of the season, and let me know your thoughts on the tier list and whether you would have placed things in different places. I am keen to hear all of your thoughts. And next week we will be starting the 11th Doctor era with Series 5.